Okay, so I've got a stake dolly here, and that's got a straight edge on. We put some duct tape on it to protect the aluminum, and this one has a very rounded edge on it. So see if I can do this without having to crash to the floor. It's always great to have a helper when you're in the shop, but I learned to do everything pretty much by myself. I used to work out of my 2-car garage, and I had to figure out how to do it by myself all the time. Okay, so that changed the angle of this again, so we might have a little battle going back and forth here. Let me get my other hammer. Now we can do it with this hammer. And then see if we can bring this down now without changing that angle too much. No. That worked out pretty good. So we got a nice little seat there, 90 degrees. Looks like we lost this a little bit. Let me see if we can recover that. I'm gonna get my body here. Well, no, that's actually pretty smooth there. Try it. It's not bad. All this stuff will have to be addressed a little bit. That's on a weld seam there, so there'll have to be a little fiddling with it later. So we got the angle right, we got the seat in there, the depth looks really good. The next step would be to check to make sure that this is flowing right here. So I might not do that now. If this needs more curve this way or flat or whatever, you can move that with just a block of wood under here and a block of wood under here, and hitting it out will flatten it. Or conversely, you put the block of wood here, and then you hit it here, and that'll put more curve in it. What's got to have to move, if there's any problem with this flow, and there looks to be a little bit of a problem right here, is this little strip of metal here, this 1/4 inch wide strip, has to move. Everything else will move. This will be resistant to moving, so it has to be persuaded. So we'll address that later. Right now it looks pretty good. Now we're going to go back to getting this set so the arrangement is proper on here, and then all we have left is these flanges and some arrangement on the front nose piece here. But after that, it should be pretty much finished. But we'll have to check it with all the gauges and everything to set the arrangement just right. But the next big step is getting this planished a little bit. It got bugged up a little bit, so I'm going to try to roll that a little bit with the wheel. So we're going to go back over to a wheel. This wheel I made years ago, and I've dedicated this one to doing reverse curves. I have a real small diameter top wheel on here, which is actually a bottom wheel for my big yellow wheel, and I turned it into a top wheel. It has a convex face to it, so it has relief on the edge, and it should navigate through here, I think. We'll try. It won't get over here, but it'll get over here. Get this smoothed out. And there's always several ways to do this. This is just one of the ways I'm choosing to do it. That's the residue from the planishing hammer stretching. It's a little bumpy there, so we're straightening that out. I can't do it over here because I would need a severely rounded top wheel in order to get in there. So that's about, well, let's do a little bit more here. Let's see. Get over here. This is super light pressure, and there's just a few little flaws in the surface there from putting that radius, inducing that radius in. A little tighter. Alright, so that's about as far as we can go with that. Now the next step will be to use a tipping of the post dolly that we made up for tipping this over. So we'll go into the post dolly with a special radius die. So I have a JD squared tubing bender. This was a piece of scrap tubing, had this nice radius in it. I cut the radius out. Put that 1-inch shaft on it so I can put it in my post dolly holder. That allows me to go up and down or turn it or anything. And then we put leather and duct tape on it. Want to make a nice soft fulcrum. And then we put one of these moving blankets on here. So what we're going to do now is, this is the radius zone right here. We're going to use that as a fulcrum point. And we're going to slowly try to bring this over. Now we can use a leather face slapper, and we can just use our hands like this too, a little at a time, and it'll go. You got to be really patient here. If you try to do too much, you'll get a kink. And the kinks, they can be fixed, but every mark you make in it is every mark you have to take out too. So now we also made a hammer form for this. I'll show you that in a minute. We might use that, but I'm going to try to do it without it. If you have the area value correct, this will go right over nicely. So far it's going pretty good. The most resistant part is going to be right here. This is going to need a little persuasion. There's not much leverage here. If we had leverage, it would have to be stretched so much and it'd be a nuisance. It would help the leverage part, but be a nuisance at the same time. The key word here is always patience. Try to do too much, you get in trouble. Move it right along this radius zone. Keep popping that thing over. It bends easier always on the end of a panel. As you go towards the center, it's harder to get it to do what you want it to do. And you can see, now that's really starting to pop to looking like it's supposed to. This is the magic of making a panel. Follow the rules and the results will be exactly what you hoped they'd be. Break the rules and you'll end up with problems. What are the rules? The rules are the flexible shape pattern or the buck. They're the boss. If you don't follow them, they will bite you. I probably will get a leather face slapper, but before we do that, let's throw the flexible shape pattern on here and see what it looks like. We can compare it to the original nose piece. It's looking pretty good. So we got the flip up, we got this rolling now. We just got to put the other flanges in. So let's check it with the flexible shape pattern, see what our plan says. home it in. I've got all the little dashes in here. They all line up too, so you got to get all the dashes. They were all done at one time. Now we bring this around. This is all nice and tight. It's a little loose right here. I might have to add a little area right in there. A little spot showed up right here saying it's loose. This is all looking good here. I think we'll be fine there. And this corner, which is the potential troublemaker, well, there could be, it maybe needs a little bit in there actually too. I can see it needs a little. So right in that corner there, it still could use a little. So I might have to go to the planishing hammer and just give it a little blast right there. So before I do that though, I think what I'm going to do is tip this flange down here. We're on our mark. That'll be just one more thing out of the way. We'll finish this up. We'll get this flange and maybe this flange too. And then all I'll have left is this little bit of a flange and then finishing this and then doing a final assessment. I'm going to do the same thing with the dividers. I'm going to transfer this line underneath. The flange is in parallel, so about 4 or 5 tick marks will give us pretty good reference of where the line has to be. And this will need a little shrinking on this flange also. So I'm going to check this again. That looks good. And we'll go over to the tipping wheel. Let's see. I transferred the mark through. And then let's see where we're at. Well, it looks like we're pretty good. So. Now I want to look at the original panel. According to the flexible shape pattern, I got a little anomaly here. I want to find out what goes on over here. So we'll take a look at the original Jaguar panel, see how they dealt with that. Yeah, so it looks like they welded the corner right here, or formed it. Now this needs to probably be trimmed off a little bit right here, because that corner here is right here. And you can see this flange is still continuing on beyond, and I got to trim that flange out there. So let me get a pen and I'll mark that. So it comes out and it makes a little turn like that. And then that will get cut off, I believe. Let's see if we can nibble that out here. These shears were called Pro Snips. Harbor Freight sold them for like, I think about 12 bucks or something a pair. I wish I'd bought 25 pairs of them. I love these things. But the company, as far as I know, is out of business now. So now we got to tip this over, and that has got to go away right there. Let's see. Probably cut a little of that material out too. If this is done in a production setup where you're making a bunch of these and you have a hammer for them, then all this is done with the caulking tool, with all this material most likely annealed, and it makes it happen real easy and quick. When you're doing it this way, you have to be super precise, and it takes time. Now we also want to look at what's going on over here, how that corner is dealt with. So we'll lift this up a little bit, take a peek at that. Okay, so that looks like it's got a forged little section there too. They kind of forged together right here in the corner. So let's go back to the post dolly with my hammer, and we'll knock this over, and the angle there is essentially a little more than 90 degrees or so. So we'll eyeball it for now, but we'll make a gauge later on. And this is why we put the holes right there, because that would rip really bad right there. It might still, so we're gonna have to do a little welding probably. Alright, now let's check the flexible shape pattern. We're on our mark, and we're bigger than we need to be, so we're going to trim that extra material off right now. And that gets welded, just a little drop of weld right there, closes that up. Now you see these are the mounting holes. We'll punch these out when we're done, and that will locate where those mounting holes, and that allows where the front fender attaches, and the holes will be right in the right spot. It's another real big benefit of the flexible shape pattern. It captures every bit of information of any panel if it's done properly. Nothing a buck can do. Trim off this extra. Don't need that one. Here's this one. These are Milwaukee's. If you notice, these Milwaukee's, all the shears today are all made with no offset here. I wish a company would make, oh, I'll take that back. Clinks, I think, have a little bit of offset. I've got some clinks too. I have some clinks. So this has about 1/4 of an inch offset. I think the clink might have about 1/8 of an inch. That offset allows you to cut both left and a little bit right too. These will allow you only to cut left. If you try to cut right, it fouls right here. So the lesson there is, you make really good stuff, you're probably going to go out of business. Okay. So now, let me tip this one here too. We'll double check the tip position. Make sure we haven't warranted. So I have the blue tape on here. I'm going to try to get this flange down. We're going to have to trim this flange, but leave it on there for now. And this corner has to be forged together right here. That's the way they did them. And eventually you get a little tack weld right in, or a little weld in there. So it's looking good. And then we'll trim it now. So now I have one more right here. Maybe we'll do that right now. These are going to be tuned a little bit, maybe shrunk. This is a common sheet metal tool for bending flanges. It's meant for really lighter stuff, roofing applications. But it comes in handy once in a while, but this certainly isn't going to work there. Years ago, I found these really cool pliers which have a parallel action. They're actually crimping pliers for electrical terminals, and they just happen to be built with this nice parallel action. So I put a couple pieces of mild steel in here, so I've got a nice squeezer, and it allows me, it's got pretty good depth, so I can come in here. Now, this needs to be trimmed too, so let's trim this out first. There's the trim mark on this one. Let's see if we can go around that corner with these little nibbler shears. Get rid of the little waste piece first. Let's see if we can make that corner. Nope. Close, but no cigar. We'll come in it this way, and we'll take a little file and clean that out with a file. So there's we'll clean that out and all this stuff later. So there's my bend line, and I don't think I can get this into the tipping wheel. I probably could get a post dolly on it, but that bend has to curve right here a little bit, so this will need some shrinking. I don't know if I want to pull that down all the way yet because it's going to foul the piece. I still got to cut out some here on the other piece, so that gets welded right there. So I cut that out of the way. So I think that's as far as I'll go with that now. Let's go back to getting this radius just right now. So we'll go back to the post dolly and we'll hit it a little bit with the slapper with the leather face on it, and we'll have the gauges right next to us, and we'll start setting those gauges. This front piece here has to roll over, so we're going to put a little roll in that right now. We have a gauge for it, but I know it needs to be go over more. Now, you can see the more you tweak the panel, that's setting the arrangement, and it'll want to go that way because we have the correct area value in. the more you tweak it, the more it'll start looking like what it needs to be. Now you can see here, there's a little dip in here. That's going to have to be tweaked. This, I believe, has to be shrunk to make this go like that, so we have to put that in the shrinker. We might have to put this in the shrinker. And we got to cold forge these joints a little bit better. And this has to roll around more. So that's what we're going to do now, is see if we can roll this a little bit more. And I think we did determine it has to be a little bit more stretching here too. So this might be a little resistant. So let me get a slapper with the leather face on it. Alright, so we got gauge number 3. Gauge number 3 is right here. And you can see that that roll has to come considerably over. Here's an index point that's got to be over here. It's about 1.5 inches of movement. So let's see if that'll roll over some more. We keep moving that fulcrum. We got a soft fulcrum. And we can quantify everything. So we constantly monitor where we're at. So right now we got about 1.5 inches still. I was moving more here. Let's see what gauge 4 says. Gauge 4 is right on this edge, and that has to come over quite a bit too. Now that's going to be an easy one, so let me do that one, and you can see how that works. This was a kneel, but it's pretty stiff now. So. But it doesn't matter, it's malleable enough that it'll come over. So now we were at 1.5 inches, now we're at 3/4 inch. And you can see here, it's that very tip that needs to really come down, which will bring this closer. This goes closer, this index marks will get closer. So we'll do this first. Now we got this over, but it's hitting right here, and we got a gap here, which means this whole thing has to. So I have to move my fulcrum point now. I got to move the fulcrum point here and kind of get this to come over a little more. So that helped out a bunch. I'm down to about 3/8 inch on the, but I opened it up when I did that, so now I got to close it up a little bit. Alright, you can see that's starting to look pretty good. I am now about 1/8 inch away. I've got a gap here. This needs to be also arranged right here. We put a little bend in it right like that. And remember, all these gauges are nothing more than external buck stations. So it's like you had an external buck. Now I'm down to 1/16 of an inch. So that's getting pretty close. I'll come back to that and get that perfect. Now I'll move to gauge 3 and see if I can get that a little better. So I'll put 4 aside. And now I got 3. It's 3 I quantified. I'm about 1.25 inches. So let's see if we can bring that over. And we won't kink this or make any bad marks because we've got a nice soft surface, especially if we go nice and slow. If we do kink it, it's not a big deal to take it out, but We want to try to go nice and easy. And the more you do this, you can see the more it's looking like the pot that we want it to be. So this is where the magic happens. We have the area value correct. Now we're setting the arrangement value. So we're at about 1 inch now. We got to come over some more here. And now we're at about 1/2 inch. We still got to come tighter here, and this is actually looking pretty good. So we'll try to tighten it up some. Look at that. That's looking pretty sweet. We're about 3/16 of an inch off. It's got to get tighter right here. So that means I've got to move the fulcrum here, and I got to hit right there. Let's see what that did. It helped a little bit, but it's not there yet. Still about 3/16 of an inch. Let's see what number 2 says at this point. 2 is coming right here. That's going to be a little trickier. 2 should be off a mile right now. No, it's not that bad actually, huh? It's not bad at all. It's only about 3/4 of an inch. So I'll have trouble getting this big slapper in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a round-faced hammer, put some leather on it and some duct tape, and I'll have a nice striking tool to roll that some more. But you can see it's starting to pop really nice now. Alright, I took my round-faced body hammer on the big end and put some leather on it with some duct tape. I probably should have done the other side. We'll see if I can get in here. So I want to try to knock this over without marking it and kinking it. Again, this is all fulcrum and lever. Everything you do pretty much in the shaping game is fulcrum and levers. Alright, and then that was number 2. And gauge 2 is right here. And the whole thing's got to come around. It's still 3/4 of an inch away. Do I have the right fulcrum? Let's see. Yeah, it's actually working for me. Do I have the right lever? Maybe. We'll try it a little more. A little harder. That seemed to go pretty nice. Now, get that gauge on there. Came down quite a bit, but I squashed it a little bit too much probably. And it needs some roll this way too, so let's get some roll in here. This is called the belly break. You got to use your belly. A lot better. Now I'm only 1/8 of an inch away. So that was sweet. So, looks like it needs a little more. And Now we might be able to get this one down where it needs to go. So let's take the, we'll go back to these pliers and see if we can pull that down with the pliers. Okay, and it's not lining up exactly yet. That's going to come right together. I might have to shrink some of that right there. I'll put the flexible shape pattern on there. There it is in position. That's all looking sweet. That's looking good, looking good. Do I have any extra material in there, or do I? Yeah, we do. Got a little extra material in here. And it looks like I got a lot of extra material on here too. Some on here. So I'll mark that and cut that off. I think that'll make it come together a lot better. Probably a little shrink in this corner too might be needed. So let's mark it and cut it. I'm lined up all the marks. This one don't look bad. This one's definitely got extra material here. So we're going to chop that off right here. And we'll chop this off. And that's all on the mark. Yeah. So we're gonna a little extra here and a little bit extra there. And we'll cut that out of the way. And then we got gauge number 1 right here. And you can see we got a lot more bending we got to do right here to get that satisfied. So let's bend that a little bit. The best policy is to try to bend a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and let it add up. But you always quantify it. I think we had about, so the bend here right now is mostly in here. So I got to bend it right in here. And that's not going to happen until I shrink this a little bit. Let's take this gauge and we'll go over here. That gauge fits on there really nicely right there. So from there to there, that's got to be curved that much. And let's see what we got. Right now, see, we got about 3/16 of an inch of gap. So we'll bring this over to the shrinker and we'll shrink this in, which will help put that desired curve in here. So everything is related. You can't neglect any aspect. So we're going over to the shrinker. I've got my gauge right here. Get this tape out of the way so it don't get bugged up on the die. And we'll see if this die will move it. So that's looking pretty good. Now, let's check what this is supposed to be doing right here. We'll go back over to the hood. So there's what gauge 8 was. And there's the spot that it's supposed to go right here. And actually we're pretty good. It's right on the index mark. It's looking pretty good. So that's not bad. For some reason, this is all behind the bumper. And Jaguar cut this out right here. That makes it a little weak there, but then it's locked in on bolts here, so it's nowhere to go. But just this is one thickness removed, but we're getting really close now. It's almost fitting on. So got to check a few more gauges and see how we're at. So this gauge 4A, the diagonal one, and I didn't put the index mark in. The index mark is right there. So that shows this corner needs more action here, so we got to bend that some more. It's got to come over. Now if you bend it too much, you can bend it back again. This doesn't change anything with the area value. This is all the arrangement value. Okay, so that's a lot better right there. So this part looks good. It's like right in the middle here that needs to be bent. So put a little pressure with a fulcrum in here. Am I doing that right? Let me see. Yeah. Try that. No, that brought it. I must have bent too much on the end here. So I gotta bring that bend around. Bring it around a little more. So that's pretty close. So then we got number 1. Let's go back to 1. No, let's see, that's 2. 2. 2, we got to get some of this out right here. We're too strong right there. I'll try the hammer. Again, you can see if you've got a hammer form, you clamp this panel on and you just hammer it in. That makes it so much easier. But the guys that are doing multiples of these, it's worth the investment to make all that tooling. Again, you can't be discouraged by this. This is the hardest part on the whole nose assembly because it's got so much happening here. And you can see we're getting really good results just by doping it out one little radius at a time here. Gauge number 2. So we're almost there now. Still a little high right here. So we'll try to hit a little harder without denting it. Lots of little blows, let them add up rather than trying to hit it really, really hard. Okay, we're actually on the mark now. We got a little gap over here. And we've got to check this out too. I want to see what's going on there because there's a little dipsy doodle right here. So I don't like that. I'm going to get 2 blocks of wood and we're going to hammer that out. So I took gauge number 1, no, gauge number 4A, which is a diagonal one. It has a nice curve to it, and I just tried it over here to see what's happening to this joggled seat here, and it fits it really perfectly from here to here. So now I put it on our new panel, and you can see what's happening here. We got a big gap. So this has to go down right here. So we're going to take and put it on a solid bench with 2 blocks of wood. There's nothing better than 2 blocks of wood. They can do a wonder for it. So what has to happen is this little 1/4 inch swath here has to bend. And to do that, you have to persuade it. So we started getting it, but it's got a kink in here that I don't like. Alright, so that means right here there's a little low spot. I'm going to move the block of wood in. Block of wood here, and a block of wood there. And I'm going to hit that right here. Ah, a lot better. Now it's kind of messed up the flange a little bit, but we'll knock that down. So now we put our gauge on there and see. Well, it's not perfect yet, but it's getting better. Let me just go check that gauge once more, how that rolls. Yeah, that goes all the way down to the front. Perfect. It's like it's made for it. So from that edge to the tip. So it just so happens that this gauge works all the way down to the front. So we got to get this set just right there. So this is going to need to shrink some more, and this is going to have to puff up some more. So some more wood block action here. Now in the process of doing this, sometimes you can screw the surface up and you're going to have to slap her and dolly it out or something. It's just a price you have to pay sometimes. So it looks like this has to be shrunk a lot more to get that to fit right. So let's go over to the shrinker again. It's getting close. It looks like it's a little overdone right here, so I got to pull some of that out. Alright, so we still got a little bit to do, but that's one thickness removed, so it won't settle in there totally, but it's almost there. Now, there's a little more fettling to do. This is going to have to come around a little more. I got to trim this off. These are going to be ground and stuff, and this will come together perfectly. I got to fine tune some of the gauges. I'll fine tune this a little bit. It's a little, the line isn't perfect yet. It has to be adjusted a little bit. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to totally finish this panel, this video right now. We'll have to wait to the next one, and in the next one I will do these final little wells and stuff and get all the gauges fitting perfectly. In the interim, I'll also make this off camera, the other side. So the next video will be the finishing details of this, the little welding and checking all the gauges and checking the surface and maybe picking up a few spots that blemished a little bit, and we'll have the other side all done. And then what we'll do in the next video is all of that and engineering the weld joint and we'll weld this together as an assembly. I want to thank you for watching. It's Wray Schelin. Please subscribe, hit that little notification bell, like, leave comments, and ask questions. Stay tuned.